Auctions.com.
I love America. I love the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I want to carry and all else. I love property. And let me tell you something. If you care about your country, read Ludwig von Mises and the 6 lessons of the Austrian Economic School, motherfuckers.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
In the fight against good versus evil, which is what the fight is. It's not political nuances, not at all. It's right versus wrong and good versus evil. Wrong and evil have an entire propaganda wing. They call it media, no question about it. It's the year 2026, and we're still entertaining people who tell you if you do not conform to their religion, they'll kill you. And we say, okay. My next guest says no, not so okay. He fights tirelessly against it. He is a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. He also is a syndicated columnist, author of Israel and Civilization, and host of the Josh Hammer Show. Josh Hammer, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Shaun. Thanks for having me back.
It's really this simple and this preposterous. You know, as you watch this, and you and I mean, we're in the news business, right? I mean, it's all over the world. It seems the only place that understands what the real threat of the Islamo-Nazi is Japan. And Japan is the only one that handled it the right way. Get out. Why is the rest of the world so slow on the uptake?
Listen, there's a prevailing mentality that all cultures are equal and all peoples and all cultures are interchangeable. A lot of this dates back to the era of globalism, to the end of the Cold War and the post-Berlin Wall era, the era of openness, if you will. We tended to cease thinking along lines of nationalism and just think that everything was global. America was the unambiguous hegemon, and free trade was everywhere, and open borders were everywhere, and this mentality really sunk in that human beings, with all of our complexity, despite the fact that we are made, as the Bible says, in the image of God and all that, we could be treated essentially as widgets, and that human beings could be as interchangeable as widgets on an economics 101 chalkboard. So you can treat immigration the same way that you can treat trade. And there are a million reasons why this is a tragic mentality, but I think a lot of thinking about Islam and various other cultures, religions, worldviews, and ways of life that are fundamentally incompatible with biblical, Judeo-Christian, Western civilization. I think a lot of thinking resulted in people just mixing and matching these worldviews, and that is a recipe for subversion at absolute best and absolute civilizational suicide at worst.
And the specificity of what we face, I think, in my opinion, traces right back to Barack Obama and the era of pay your enemy, yep, steal money in Democrat enclaves, because what they understood, what Chicago really understood, is that magic needs a beautiful assistant. Theft and chaos and the collapse of society needs an ugly assistant. And the ugly assistant is criminals let out on the street repeatedly. The feudalism of police work and law enforcement. The feudalism of capitalism is only the people who pay taxes are the ones that work. But on the world stage, where the money really goes out the door, and the vast majority of the $30 trillion added to the national debt since Barack Obama was late on his car payment from the west side of Chicago, that really goes to the enemies of Americanism, both foreign and domestic. I don't think you can trace any president, American president, who was a bigger asset to enemies, foreign and domestic, of America than Barack Obama. I'm wondering what you think of that.
Listen, I went to law school at the University of Chicago Law School. I lived in Chicago for 3 years. I lived for my first year of law school right down the street from Barack Obama's old home in Hyde Park, actually. His portrait is still hanging outside classroom 5 of my law school to this day. And I've been tracing this man for a very long time. So many of our current ills I trace back to Barack Obama. And I talk about this topic a lot, actually, on my own daily show, The Josh Hammer Show. And to me, what we're seeing when it comes to the DSA, when we're seeing when it comes to third worldism, when it comes to this lust, this zeal for barbarism over civilization, as you accurately refer to as the rise of the domestic enemies, this really does go back to Barack Obama's pre-2008 campaign pledge, which he pledged on the precipice of his victory over John McCain, where he said that we are going to fundamentally transform America. And it is something of a truism that one does not seek to fundamentally transform that which he loves. If you think something is good and beautiful, then you should take care to preserve it. Perhaps you might want to incrementally tinker with it, hoping that it can get even better. But you simply do not, quote, fundamentally transform that which you already love. So the Barack Obama left already hated America. The DSA is simply attempting to finish the job. They're trying to take it even further, because these people don't just seek to fundamentally transform America, Shaun. They actually want to end it. They actually want to burn it down. And at times of rare candor, they actually say so quite explicitly, don't they? So, for instance, this lunatic in New York City, Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, not that I really care if I'm not, but she's the one who just won her primary.
Very continental, Josh. Very continental. Yes, I know who she is. Yes, I'm aware.
Right. So she's the one who just won the primary in New York City. And, she was one of the founders of the group known as CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid and Divest. Now, at face value, this is just an anti-Israel, pro-Hamas organization. I say just as if that's, a small deal. It's terrible on its face, to be clear. But if you actually look at what that organization stands for, they say they want to tear down Western civilization. They actually say this. They actually say our goal is to end Western civilization. And, we know from Ecclesiastes that there's nothing new under the sun, the words of King Solomon back in the Bible. And this really does go back to Karl Marx, too, because Karl Marx himself had the ultimate goal of what? Of tearing down all of Western civilization, of tearing down all of capitalism, all of Christendom, which he essentially conflated those two things, Christendom and capitalism. These are today's radicals. They are attempting to finish the job of all the radicals before then going back probably as far as the French Revolution itself and all that's followed. So that's what we're seeing in his unhinged stuff. And the genie was broadly kept in the bottle until Barack Obama. Barack Obama unleashed a lot of it. And now this post-George Floyd world that we're living in has unleashed a lot of it still. And it seems to get worse and worse by the day. By the way, I take no particular pleasure in this. I should clarify that. I'm a conservative. I've never voted for Democrat in my entire life, and I have no intention of starting tomorrow. But I do think that America fundamentally operates better when there are two political parties that are not bat crap crazy insane. Our politics is healthier. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Here's the issue that I've noticed for a long time. Tell me if you think it's credible. The beauty of America is that it's founded on the individual. This entire country, the youngest and the richest with the highest quality of life, is the only country that is founded on the individual rights of the citizen, not the power of the government. The problem I have with parties is parties try to take that away as well. I noticed this. There's nothing worse than a Democrat nationally than an Illinois Republican. So I've never been one of these party guys. I don't wave our banner. To me, it's about very specific people. And once you take the individuality out of anything, now you have the collective. And that is a posse. And that is a group of people that, if motivated, if envious, if jealous, can really destroy anything, whether they're a political party or this new movement of the American commie. And that's the problem I think we have, right? We keep trying to corral almost each other into just taking the party politics. What I loved about Trump, who I rejected very early on, did not vote for him. Everybody who listens to me knows this. In 2016, and the reason was his relationship with the Clintons. He was very cozy with Bill Clinton. His relationship in Chicago, he had hired nine-finger Yakuza, Rahm Emanuel, $50,000. He gave Ed Burke, who went to prison. I don't know if you know much, if you remember that name. I'm sure you did. You lived there for years. The big fat slob who was an alderman in charge of finance. He was a gangster for 50 years. He finally went away. Convicted felon. That was Trump's lawyer. So I said, I'm not going to, and he earned my respect for him, because to me, what he represents is that Kennedy Democrat and that Reagan Republican. He is the first third party. I think where the real opportunity is missed is that he and his marketing team didn't understand that and take advantage of it. I don't think the window's closed, but who are we going to go with? Am I going to go with John Thune or Mitch McConnell, who I think is having tea with the Ayatollah? I think that son of a gun's been dead for 3 weeks, but that's just me. The reality is I think the party politics, we undermine our own individuality from the side of the right. Do you think that way?
Well, listen, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. Look, at a face level, I agree with you when it comes to political parties. I mean, I have no particular love for the two-party system, to be honest with you. I think in some ways, actually, a multi-party democracy is probably even healthier. You get more of a marketplace of ideas at different party platforms. There's a lot to not like about America's two-party system. That's just the way it's been essentially since the country's origins, really, in the very first party system with the Federalist Party of Washington, Adams, and Jay and Hamilton versus the Madisonian Jeffersonians. And then the Whigs replaced the Federalists, and we've essentially been kind of off the races from there. So I have no love for the party system. And listen, there have been Republican candidates on the ballot before who I have refused to vote for various reasons. I obviously agree that we should be about ideas and principles and policies and political philosophy and all the above. That's what I care about personally, much more so than just blindly voting for a particular political party. I disagree with you a little bit, to be candid, when it comes to the centrality of individualism versus some notion of the common good. I'm not saying that individual moral worth dignity is not absolutely core to the American experiment. Of course it is. It's right there in the Declaration. All of this, of course, is intellectually downstream of Genesis 1:27, the notion that we're made in God's image. So this is clearly a part of the American experiment. But the preamble of the Constitution also speaks about more I don't want to say collective, this becomes such a dirty word, but more common good oriented aims, shall we will. Talk about forming a more perfect union, common defense, promote the general welfare, et cetera. So America has always been kind of this balancing act where we care deeply about individual moral worth and dignity, but we also do care about the collective. Now, that has nothing to do with the party system, by the way. Parties can not be a part of the puzzle, and we can still seek to preserve the common good for all. But that's the delicate balancing act America has always been dealing with. Yeah,
right. But without the rule of law, without the fundamental understanding of what is law, what is liberty, what is the mission, and when I say we, I mean the people who are the opposition to the American communists. We have somehow put ourselves in a position where we actually fund failure, and what is undeniable now in Democrat areas, failure is the goal. Chaos is the goal. The ghetto is the goal. And if we continue to fund this, if we continue to allow $30 trillion in 18 years, Josh, think about when you were back here in Chicago. What was the debt? What was the debt when you were in college? Was it $8 trillion? Was it $6 trillion? Was it $4 trillion? Look at what has happened in just 18 years. If we don't stop this on the principle of right and wrong, it's wrong to finance people stealing you. We're going to lose. And I think there are enough former Democrats who are not blue-eyed white devils, former Democrats who are not Christians, former Democrats who are not party-affiliated, to really come together under a movement of Americanism. I really believe that, because after all, that's what we want. Me and you and all the decent people. It's all we want. I don't want anything from anybody. And, this whole thing of what Trump represents, he represents that. Look at his big, beautiful bill. What does it do? It gives money to the people who make it. It gives them their own money. Everything else is about the virtue of taking from somebody else or from debt in the future. We win on the principle of the argument. I don't know where we lost the ability to make it. And I don't mean me and you. Listen, our shows are kicking ass. We're doing great. I'm talking about the people who we send, the 535 guys who are supposed to represent us. It's amazing how either incompetent, which that's the virtue that I think they're shooting for, or just downright in on it they are. Don't you think we got to break it before it all becomes Chicago?
Well, 1,000%, yes, when it comes to spending. And I love your frame, by the way. In fact, in my show just today, I went on a riff about how the fundamental divide in our politics is between civilization and barbarism. That really is how I see it. I mean, when I think of every issue around the world, the nation state is civilization. Open borders is chaos, anarchy, and barbarism. Standing for criminals is barbarism. Standing for law and order and law enforcement is civilization. And you basically do every issue, even in foreign policy, Israel versus Hamas. I mean, every issue in politics, both domestic and foreign, ends up boiling down to this stark moral divide of civilization versus barbarism. And I like what you said about Donald Trump as well, because you're right that Trump is somewhat of a clumsy fit for a capital R Republican. And that's why I tend to think of our divides these days as not necessarily between R and D, and not necessarily even between left and right. In fact, before the Trump-Kamala Harris election on my show, what I was doing was I was trying to frame it as not being an R versus D or left-right election. I was trying to say you're either on team civilizational sanity or team civilizational arson. You are a sane person that is trying to generally preserve and maintain your civilizational inheritance, maybe tinker with it, maybe improve it here or there, ultimately trying to, as you correctly point out, try to save our posterity, future generations from being indebted to the tune of tens of trillions of dollars. Or on the other hand, you think that all of this was conceived in sin and oppression and colonialism and, insert your ism of choice, I suppose, transphobia, xenophobia, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to burn the whole darn thing down. So that's the basic divide. I know which side of that divide I'm on. The beauty of Donald Trump, whatever his faults may be, and I definitely have some bones to pick, especially over how this whole Iran thing has been handled, but whatever his faults may be, he is a man who knows which side of the civilization versus barbarism fault line he is on. He is an unambiguous positive force for team civilization. For that, I find myself very, very grateful for him.
The other thing, too, is that good people of good nature and good conscience are at a disadvantage when dealing with pirates, gypsies, and scoundrels. They really are. Because they cast upon strangers their own virtue. They cast upon strangers their own intention. And that's a huge mistake when you're dealing with somebody who has intentions that are exactly the opposite, to rob you. When you're dealing with somebody who wants to rob you and you try to solve the problem from the goal of solving the problem or achieving success, you're at a disadvantage because you're playing into their hands. And that's really how I go back to those Democrat years when Chicago went from just a town where you had some friends and they called it clout to absolute and total Soviet corruption. And it's all delivered by the Chicago Democrat. And it was fascinating to watch how people were making excuses to fight what they see with their own eyes. From the election theft of 2020 to Joe Biden repeatedly saying, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. Did you ever hear a president talk like that in all of your life, paying attention to politics? An American president would come out repeatedly. I'm in trouble. I can't talk too much. I'll be in trouble. In trouble with who? In trouble with the Leviathan. The Leviathan and the cult of the American mafia built in Chicago. Barack Obama orchestrated all of that. When Tulsi Gabbard releases the 100 pages where he instructed the CIA and the FBI, somebody's got to go to jail for this. And if you don't do it, then they get away with it. He's got $40 million in real estate alone. He couldn't make his car payment. He was getting it from some half-ass bookmaker in my neighborhood to make his car payment when he was a state senator. So ultimately, we've got the evidence. Do you think that Blanche, and I pray that he has the testicle fortitude, made up the word, I know, but the fortitude to move forward and prosecute some of these people? Because without that, you insult every carpenter, every electrician, every guy busting his ass, every law student, if you don't prosecute them, don't you?
I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the reasons, so among the hats I wear, Shaun, is I'm senior counsel at a group called the Article 3 Project, and we've been emphatically supportive of the Todd Blanche nomination for Attorney General. I would say largely actually on these exact grounds, actually. One of our leading grounds for doing so. So we think that Todd Blanche is uniquely positioned to actually meaningfully pursue justice when it comes to the lawfare. And the reason for that is because he knows where the bodies are buried. So Todd Blanche's basic resume, to kind of cut to the chase here, the career highlights are he was an 8-year prosecutor at SDNY, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. That's in Manhattan. Major white-collar crime. So he was an 8-year prosecutor there. And most recently, he was Pam Bondi's deputy attorney general, which means that he essentially runs the department on a day-to-day basis while the attorney general is more the public-facing figurehead. But the key thing to note is what he did between those stints, between what he did at SDNY and then ultimately at Maine Justice over the past year and a half. He was Donald Trump's lead defense attorney at the height of the Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, Jack Smith lawfare. Above arguably any other lawyer in the country, and there were some exceptions. So, for instance, our current Solicitor General, a great attorney, John Sauer, rushed to defend Donald Trump. My good personal friend, Will Sharf, who's currently Staff Secretary of the White House, Will Sharf defended Donald Trump. But maybe even more so than those guys, more than anyone else, you had Todd Blanche that ran from the line because he saw a Stalinist persecution here. And he did what a lot of the old crusty barnacles of the conservative legal establishment never would have done. So Blanche knows where the bodies are buried here. He knows where the skeletons are in the closet. And I think that he is going to do his absolute most to try to get us justice. Now, will he actually get people sent to jail? I cannot predict that. I just can't. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not just up to Todd Blanche. It's up to grand juries, up to juries, up to judges. There's too many parts in
Right.
this murky soup. But I think that if anyone's going to get as close as possible as getting real justice for this grievous wrong that was perpetrated against American people, I think it's Todd Blanche. And that's one of the many reasons that I'm very excited for him to be the full Attorney General of the United States.
Yes, I mean, the agenda of Barack Obama, as he used to have Che Guevara in his campaign office, the agenda is what we're facing today. That's all. He was the acorn, this is the tree. It's that simple. And if we don't use law as the rule of law and the shield of the citizen, and it becomes the spear of the government, that's going to be a rough couple of years, kid. And I feel they already stole 4 from us. So the good news is I think there are fantastic states, and I just need the government, while it's in charge by decent people are in charge of it, I need them to put up barriers to make sure that everything can't become Chicago. Because don't get me wrong, I'll navigate through it the way I always did. But that's not right. That's not America. That's becoming used to low living and a Soviet mafia that poses as government. So I love the fact that you fight this every day. Where can we get a hold of the Josh Hammer Show?
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm on X at Josh_Hammer. Instagram is Josh B. Hammer. The Josh Hammer Show available everywhere your podcast. It's actually the Salem Podcast Network. It's actually also on the Salem News Channel every weeknight at 10 p.m., weekend evenings at 11 p.m., also on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts as well. You
know what else? I've been around these guys my whole life. And they have a certain smarmy arrogance and ignorance in the fact that they're getting away with it. I couldn't stand it. To this day, I can't even. I went back for 9 days. I think I lost more hair than I should have in those 9 days. And after Trump was robbed, we were invited, AM 560, and I got a chance to go to Mar-a-Lago. And to see the reaction and all of the decent people, Rudy Giuliani, and all of the people who couldn't believe we couldn't get that election audited. And at the end, he's walking out, and I was able to shake Trump's hand. And he did something politicians don't do. He looked you right in the eye. He looked me right in the eye. And we talked for a second. You know who does that? Men outside of government. That's what we do. This is the first time we've been in this position. If we can't win now, Josh, and you and I are going to have a hell of a time as we get old, kicking everyone's ass on the air. What do you think?
Shaun, I'm happy to be in the fight with you, and I genuinely hope that we get justice for these crimes that are hoisted on the American Republic. Because fundamentally, if you don't get accountability, you don't get justice. The truth is, the same damn thing is going to happen over and over and over again. That, above all, is why it is so important to nip this thing in the bud right freaking now.
Josh Hammer, thanks for joining me. I look forward to the next time. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
He's Shaun Thompson.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
And this is the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, did you ever track down that missing warehouse key?
I forgot all about it.
You forgot? You said that guy was furious when you had to let him go.
That doesn't matter anymore. Goldilocks set us up with new managed access control. We're keyless now.